Elsie Davis was a 24-year-old girl who used to work at a church in Bethel, Maine of United States in 1911. On the Sunday of July 30th, she attended the church and went to her home in Howe Hill. Around the noontime, she went missing and the parents couldn't get a hold of her. The parents started searching but couldn't find her. They assumed she might have gone to the wooded section behind the house, so they asked for assistance from the neighbors. A volunteer group found Elsie's comb and several footprints in the hills behind her home. They didn't make any further progress for the next 3 days when a clairvoyant told the search group where they can find Elsie. She said they can find her inside a tree deep in the woods and that searchers needed to look up to find her. In the afternoon of the 5th day of the search, the volunteers were 3 miles from Elsie's house when they started finding Elsie's belongings one by one, such as shoes and coat. They kept going until they heard a stick break. They continued until they reached a large pine tree where they heard the sound above them. They looked up and saw Elsie stuck 20 feet up into the trees with minimal clothing. Searchers called her name but she didn't respond. They brought her down but Elsie was unable to talk and seemed to be quite confused. She was in a satisfactory condition overall. They brought her home and asked couple questions from her but she couldn't remember anything after she left the church on Sunday. She stated that her memory was blank from Sunday until she was found. Nobody ever found out why Elsie went missing for 5 days and what happened to her memory during that time. The 3-year-old Ronald Romba was playing outside of his rural home in Scottsdale of Pennsylvania with 4 of his siblings on September 15th of 1940. The father of the household went to a baseball game very close to their house and left the 5 children in the yard. It is believed that Ronald must have tried to follow his father to the game and got lost. After some time, the father came back and couldn't find Ronald. At this point, he called the state police of Pennsylvania. The state police was able to bring hundreds of searchers to the area just a day after Ronald went missing. The search area has very thick vegetation and large trees. They searched the area for 3 days and didn't find a single trace of Ronald. The state police stated they didn't think the 2-year-old can survive the elements for 3 days, so they terminated the search. Just as the police was terminating the search, a local volunteer pilot and a spotter named David Patterson and Paul Verhola were flying over a cornfield 3 miles from Ronald's residence when they saw a boy lying on stalks. He was not moving. They did another flyover in lower altitudes and the boy sat up. At that point, David knew he found Ronald. They let the family know where the boy was, and they started running through 100 rows of corn and found Ronald alive and groggy. They took him to hospital and found out he had scratches and bruises all over his body, but he was in a satisfactory condition overall. The police stated they searched inch by inch every row of the cornfield that Ronald was found just the day before. They believed there was no way they would miss him, and continued that the kid was kidnapped and placed there later. The police stated the boy's light jumper suit was not soiled or torn. His shoes weren't dirty either. The boy was in the hospital for 2 days, and the police tried to question him about what happened, but it was impossible to get a coherent answer from the 2-year-old. The family believed someone had to shelter him, as it was unbelievable that Ronald could walk to the cornfield and survive 3 days alone. What happened to Ronald remains a mystery to this day. On August 5th of 1948, the 3-year-old Jerry Hoffman was playing with his dog in the yard of his house in the outskirts of Philo, Ohio. The area around the residence has lots of vegetations and trees. At 6 p.m., Jerry's father went to look for him but could not find him nor the dog. They started searching the residence farm and found his clothes at the far end of the property. At this point, they called the authorities for help. Over 200 people came to help with the search. The whole group searched through the night, and in the morning, after a day Jerry was disappeared, the dog who was playing with him came back to the residence. Jerry's father calmed the dog down and asked where Jerry was. The dog took off immediately and Jerry's father and a neighbor followed it. The dog walked for 1.5 miles before it stopped close to a cornfield with a wire fence. On the wire fence they found Jerry with his foot caught in the fence and a wild grapevine wrapped around his neck. The boy was semi-conscious and was turning blue. The temperature outside was 55 degrees and Jerry was naked. He was transported to a hospital where they said he was in a good condition. He never explained why he left the property and why he took off his clothes.